Good evening. Welcome to the November 13th, 2023 meeting of the East Bend School District Board of School Directors. Following the pledge, I'd like everybody to remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Edwin Cortez, an 11th grade EHS student who sadly passed away on October 31st of this year. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, it's my pleasure to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the EHS Student Government Association report. So it's my pleasure to introduce again Ms. Elizabeth Thamer and introduce for the first time Ms. Jelena Patel.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. To start off, here's an update about student government. Applications for freshman students who are interested in joining SGA are out now. Moving on, as the fall sports season is coming to a close, here's some news about our teams. The girls' cross-country team won the team district title, which qualified them to run at states. Madeline McCartney won the individual district title and also earned a medal at states. On the boys' cross-country team, 3 athletes qualified individually for the state tournament and ran well. Congrats to the boys' soccer team for winning the district championship. They went on to the first round of states last Tuesday, but lost against Council Rock North. The girls' soccer team has had an amazing season. They made it to the district championship game, but unfortunately lost to Parkland. The field hockey team has their state semifinal game tomorrow at Lower Dauphin. Good luck, field hockey. After an exciting season, the football team lost their semifinal district playoff game against Parkland on Friday. Lastly, the girls' volleyball team had a successful season, but unfortunately came to a close when they lost in the district quarterfinal game. And now for Elizabeth.
In club and organization news, the chess team will compete on Tuesday against Liberty for their first competition of the year. The team has grown significantly for its second official year, and they continue to play many teams within EPSD conference and hope to continue their undefeated streak from last year. The debate team competed against William Allen and Dariff, as well as Allentown Central Catholic this past week. Both of EHS's affirmative A and B teams won for the second time in a row, and the negative A and B teams are looking for their first win. A new club this year, Hydroponics Club, helps teach students about agriculture and the concept of hydroponics, which involves growing plants in water. The club sells these plants to help fund the growth of more plants. Many future business leaders of America's club members attended the State Leadership Workshop during the last weekend of October. The Young Republicans Club hung thousands of red, white, and blue stars all over the cafeteria in honor of Veterans Day. Students wrote the names of family and friends who had or are currently serving in the military. Also for Veterans Day, the Interact Club organized a school-wide letter drive for over 1,000 letters to be sent to veterans to show appreciation and gratitude. The Interact Club also filled over 160 trick-or-treat bags for special education classes, the preschool, EHS preschool, kindergarten classes, and more. Lastly, Habitat for Humanity is hosting a gingerbread making competition on December 15th to help fundraise for their club goals. Thank you, and we look forward to a great year.
Okay, thank you for the report. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Well, again, this is the highlight of the meeting. The things just get get in the weeds after this point. Anyway, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish, but if you have other activities you'd like to pursue, you may be excused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 23rd meeting?
So moved.
Second, are there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bowen,
Aye.
Ms. Bowman,
Aye.
Mr. Byrd,
Aye.
Mr. Champagne,
Aye.
Mr. Falegi,
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Dr. Whitney,
Aye.
Dr. Levinson.
Aye.
9 ayes.
I apologize for the oversight. To my knowledge, there are no requests to address the board. So, again, thank you for that. Apologize for not saying that before. All right, we approve the minutes. So next item on the agenda is the district update from Dr. Campbell.
Good evening, thank you. As our two student representatives noted in their update, we're very proud of all of our student athletes from our fall athletic season. They all did a tremendous job, made us very proud. And in particular, we have 3 high school teams who earned the district title for their sport, including girls cross country, field hockey, and boys soccer. I'd also like to recognize the outstanding efforts of the EHS cast and crew of Little Women. They put on a wonderful performance, as always, last week. And hopefully members of our community were able to come out and see the show. We'd also like to recognize several Lower Macungie Middle School 8th graders who recently were invited and attended the DeSales Leadership Conference. I just wanted to take a moment and reflect on the fact that our community and our board knows that we have a profile of a graduate. Certainly, we strive to provide our students with an outstanding academic program. We're also very much attuned to developing leadership skills, interpersonal skills, to help them be well prepared for the adventures outside of their time here as students. And so certainly this leadership conference is just one way in which we're able to do that. Those students from Lower Macungie Middle School who participated are Connor Krause, Olivia Lawson, Xavier Nance, Jocelyn Crasley, Micah Knopf, Jalen Rosado, Gabriel Weber, Alex Torres, Reagan Coffey, and Chase Stockhausen. Speaking of leadership opportunities, we also had our Emmaus High School Future Business Leaders of America officers and members who attended the state FBLA workshop in early November. Those students who represented Emmaus High School and expanded their leadership skills are Rebecca Gallius, Cecilia Coleman, Angela Tran, Kayana DeBrow, Nick DeSantis, Jack Census, and Reno Guastella. We also had several students from Emmaus High School who participated with their advisor, Mrs. Stout. She's a computer science teacher at Emmaus High School, and she led several students at Kutztown University as they participated in the Women in STEM Day conference. We'd also like to recognize 16 Emmaus High School students who recently qualified for the 2024 PMEA District 10 Chorus. Those individuals are Charles Kenner, Anna Chavoya, Hannah Kern, Ryan Jack, Naomi Sharpless, TJ Sislove, Noah Hoover, Allison Fee, Ashlyn Fee, Jacob Ackerman, Ben Fletcher, Raphael Diaz, Thomas McDonald, Emily Brown, Kira Kelly, Haley Kavacki, and Ryan Bagg. Also, early in November, it's been a busy month for our students. We had several members of the Emmaus High School American Computer Science League who competed at the first annual Hack the Valley Hackathon that was held at the Microsoft Technology Center in Malvern, PA. In addition to a 3-hour coding competition, our participants took part in question and answer sessions with a panel of Microsoft employees. Both teams from Emmaus High School did a fantastic job, with one of our teams consisting of Hugh Wilkes, Matt Coyle, and Thomas Amador, who finished in third place overall in the competition. Our students from Emmaus High School who are involved in the National Art Honor Society have been busy working with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, specifically on a mural project. Our students at Emmaus High School have been working with a resident artist to create illustrations that are, again, going to be featured at the mural at the Turnpike Allentown Service Center Plaza. So we'll let you know when that's finished, and you can take a peek at the students and their amazing artwork. If there's anyone who's interested in continuing to support our East Penn Therapy Dog program, we now have an online store with apparel that is available through November 29th. As always, we also accept donations as well. Those generous donations help to support the cost to keep our dogs healthy. If you're interested in perhaps supporting the apparel and/or donating, you can visit our district website for the link. I want to remind our Emmaus High School 11th and 12th graders, if there's any student who's interested in participating in our high school field study program, which is a phenomenal opportunity for our high school students, we are still accepting applications for second semester. Students can apply online through December 1st. We have our field study website that's available on the EHS website, or you can contact Mrs. Duffy at the high school directly to learn more about that program. We in the district are very appreciative of the many partnerships that we have with various organizations in the community, including an ongoing partnership that the district has with the Emmaus Rotary. And through the support with several other local organizations, we are able to, on a regular basis, provide non-perishable food items to any families within the East Penn School District who might be in need. And so we have an updated schedule for our supplemental feeding program, and the distribution sites and times are listed on our East Penn School District website. And the final reminder that I have is as we gear up for the Thanksgiving holiday, which is coming up in about a week and a half, we're very excited to welcome senior citizens from across the East Penn community at our annual Thanksgiving luncheon, which we host at the district at multiple locations. And so if there are any seniors who have not yet responded and would like to join us, they simply have to reach out to Laura Grow, and information again is also available on our district website. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Jankowski.
I'd just like to note, last weekend I got to see the Iyer Middle School performance of, I had to write this down because it's really long, appropriate audience behavior and This Is Your Brain on social media. The cast and crew were outstanding. The comedic genius of the student actors was fantastic, and it was a really accurate depiction on real life. I felt like I was watching my own kids up on that stage and what I deal with every day. So kudos to Iyer for a great performance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jankowski. Any other comments? I'd just like to say I bought my T-shirt for the therapy dogs downstairs. Okay. Moving on, next item is a budget item to adopt a resolution not to exceed the Act 1 index. May I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, I believe there's some comments from the administration.
Yes, thank you. Just as a reminder to the board and information for the public, Act 1 of 2006 outlines a very specific budget process, starting with the preliminary budget. With regard to the preliminary budget, it provides two options in terms of moving forward. The first option is to adopt a resolution such as the one you have before you this evening, not to exceed the Act 1 index. Adoption of the resolution does limit the board's ability to increase the tax rate beyond the Act 1 index for the 24-25 school year. The Act 1 index is very high this year. The Act 1 index is very high, but the school district, East Penn School District adjusted Act 1 index of 6.2% is the highest we've seen since the inception in 2006. Some real quick math, 6.2%, if the real estate tax rate were increased to 6.2%, it would generate an approximate additional $7.3 million. The other option that is available to the board, which is generally used in years when the index is much lower, is to adopt a preliminary budget that shows the need to exceed the index, which would allow the board to apply for Act 1 exceptions. It is based on the very high index this year. It is the recommendation of the administration that the board adopt the resolution not to exceed the index, as we don't believe that we would exceed 6.2% in any way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Saul. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Well, I think I can speak for everyone that I certainly share the sentiment that 6.2% is ample room, and again, no intention to go any higher than that. All right, we have a motion. If there are no further questions, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Our next item on the agenda is the EPSD facilities plan. Before we get into the individual items, I believe the administration has some commentary.
You might recall at our last meeting, at our October 23rd meeting, we had many guests join our East Penn administration in terms of, and we presented a comprehensive overview of the facility study. And so I promise you the presentation that we have this evening, the slides are much shorter than the 72 slides that we had at our last meeting. But through the robust discussion that the board had, and certainly will continue tonight, and thinking about the action items that are on the agenda this evening, we thought it was very important to share with the board as well as the community an overview of the facility project as we're describing the milestones or very important timelines that we foresee as we work through the facilities process. Specifically, we heard concerns at the previous meeting that action that might be taken at this evening's meeting was really going to then encompass many, many decisions, including facility design, finances, school boundaries, et cetera. And so we wanted to just take a moment this evening to briefly review the steps in the planning and implementing the planning process, as well as then implementing those school facility renovations. The overview that we're going to go through was developed in collaboration with East Penn administration, Breslin Architects, and we also referenced, you're going to see this throughout the brief presentation, there's reference to PlanCon, which is really a process through the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And so I want to just start off by emphasizing that this planning process is not something that the district created. It really is in collaboration with experts, the architects with whom we're partnering, as well as many of the steps, if not all, have actually been set forth through PDE. I want to just mention something because I used the term PlanCon, and again, it's referenced in the steps that I'm going to go through briefly in just a moment. But I think it's important for the community to understand, as well as our board, to understand what we mean by PlanCon. When a school district undertakes a major construction project and is seeking reimbursement from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a process known as PlanCon is initiated. Now, the important piece here is that PlanCon really is a set of forms, procedures that are used by a school district to apply to PDE for reimbursement. Now, here's the piece. While PDE is not currently accepting applications for PlanCon, we still, as an organization, recognize that there's great value to adhere to the process in the event that there is future funding. And also, you're going to see PDE has very logically outlined a process for districts that methodically and transparently works through school construction, which is a mammoth task. Specifically, PlanCon requires that districts document their planning process, which is something that we have certainly begun to do. It requires that school districts, East Penn, provide justification for projects that we're planning to undertake. And it also, PlanCon makes sure that our work in the district is in compliance with state laws, regulations, and standards. So I just want to be clear in terms of, at this point, PDE is not accepting applications for that financial reimbursement piece. But our administration, in collaboration with our architect, certainly recommends continuing to follow these steps. So with that, I'm going to briefly go through within the planning phase. And let me point out as well, any step that has an asterisk by it is one that would require school board action. And so I think that's also really important as we think through the process tonight. You'll see that some of the actions that we are proposing the board take tonight are still a part of this preliminary planning phase, and there will be multiple touch points at which administration will report back to the board, and the board will have to take action to enable us to move ahead. So one of the first steps is the recognition of a project need and approval to proceed with a facility study. That would have been something that our board has already completed in allowing us to contract with a firm to complete the study. We then have completed the feasibility study, went through the process in terms of study evaluation and development of feasibility study options. Again, that's the process that we talked about at our last meeting. What you see bolded here tonight is really what we are proposing that the board take action on, specifically acceptance of the feasibility study. That's one of the first parts of the sequence of facility actions tonight. And then approval of a facility study option for further development. And I gave you the specifics here. In our case, our administration, given the fact that we recognize we have K-12 facility needs in the organization. However, based on the enrollment and the demographics that have been presented, we recognize that there is a very urgent need, particularly at the elementary level, for us to address some of the capacity needs. And so that is the rationale in terms of beginning with the K-8 options, certainly recognizing that our board will continue to discuss those high school options as well, and ideally, at some point in the future, then take action in terms of high school options. After action on that next step in terms of giving us administration direction in terms of which option at the K-8 level to further develop, we would then engage with an architect and professional services. We then at that point actually move into the next phase of the process, which is the design phase. And you can see here there are many opportunities in which the administration would report our findings to the board, and the board would have many decisions to make, including approval of an educational program, a proposed project justification. I'm not going to go through all these steps, but I'm going to specifically call out those in which the board will be involved in. You can see engagement of construction manager, approval of Act 34 hearing materials, approval of design documents, approval of bid documents, awarding construction contracts, and approval of project financing. So again, I appreciate that I'm likely repeating myself, but tonight's action is still part of the planning process, and that enables our administration as well as an architect to now fully develop an option so that we can bring the very detailed specifics back to the board, present the findings and the recommendation, and then receive approval for each of those pieces in terms of the exact design, the exact budget, the exact construction timeline. You've heard us talk at the October meeting that much of what we reported at this point very much is conceptual. We feel confident in that work, but certainly we would come to you with more specifics and concrete items in the future. After the design phase, we then move into construction phase in terms of approval of those payments throughout the construction process, approval of change orders. We hope there's not a lot of those. And then a continued approval of additional project financing as needed. Again, we hope there's not a lot of that as well. Again, all leading to that project closeout process. Methodically, this happens over the course of several years. And so we thought it was important just to start off the discussion so that there's a clear understanding in terms of what the board is providing direction on this evening. That it really is, I think a board member captured it accurately at our last meeting. We believe that we are at a fork in the road and are really looking for the board's feedback and direction in terms of which fork we should continue to pursue at this time. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that overview. As Dr. Campbell mentioned, the first step is to make a motion and approve or accept the feasibility study. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or discussion? Mr. Champagne?
Yes, just wanted to highlight that the fact that, as part of that feasibility study, and I've gotten several emails regarding boundaries for any kind of redistricting or, how students might move from one school to the other. And as Dr. Campbell just outlined, this is a multi-year process. So none of those decisions have been made at this point in time. The information that was provided in the feasibility study was the best information we had available. It was an attempt to highlight for the board and the public how things could turn out, but nothing has been said in concrete. And, I know some parents and some members of the community are concerned about whether their student next year or could be going to a different school. That's not going to happen. This process, as we've just heard, is a stepwise process, multi-year process, and so there's going to be ample opportunity for the community to provide feedback to the administration on issues like that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Champagne. Ms. Bowman?
Yeah, I guess more of a question, because the last meeting was quite long. Can you give a synopsis of exactly what we're approving in the facility study? Is the study everything that was presented during the last meeting?
Did you want to answer that?
No, I was going to.
Okay. We're just accepting the facility study at this point with this motion. We're not.
I think I'm asking because so much was presented at the last meeting. I'm asking which part of that was the facility study and which part of that is all of it part of the facility study?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
The facility study would be the original document that was presented by KCBA, as well as the additional body of work that was compiled after that, which was presented at the last meeting. So holistically, that is the facility study. I'll also add that acceptance of a facility study was very important under PlanCon because it was a trigger point in terms of a process.
Okay.
And so that's why you see it here again, and trying to be compliant with the PlanCon process that has been laid out. We're asking the board to accept that feasibility study so we have record of that step in the process.
So by voting yes for this, we're basically saying that this work was done.
Yes.
We're agreeing that the work
accepting
was
it.
done.
Exactly, right.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's what I was looking for. And I did just want to make a comment because we did get a number of emails from different people. And actually, some of them were concerns that I had during the last meeting because, yes, there are so many different decisions that will be made in the years moving forward, yes, plural. And I thought, especially for the K through 8 model, that we would be actually making multiple decisions tonight, which felt overwhelming. So just to say that I understand the anxiety of different people who wrote to us. If I was in their situation, I would share the same anxiety. And I was feeling it during the meeting 2 weeks ago. and have been reassured that we are only voting to just move forward with our continued study, maybe picking one option to study more than the other options that were on the table. But a yes vote for any of these does not mean anyone's children will be going to a different school. It also doesn't mean that the price tags are set in stone. That's up for a lot of discussion, and I'm sure we will be having it. So, I'm confident to move forward and vote on one of these tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman, for those questions. Mr. Byrd?
My comment's about the same. I received quite a few emails concerned about where my children will go to school next year, also about the price tag of the project. And I think assuring our community that we're not there yet. Still a lot of decisions have to be made. We're just approving the facility study. And I think that message, we need to continue that message. We're just starting. We have to have a starting point, and I think we just have to start. But nothing's set in stone. No budgets, no dollars are being asked to be approved tonight, and no where your child going to go next year. So I'm going to definitely on board to vote yes for that tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Any further comments?
I
Dr.
do have
Whitney?
a question. So in the presentation we received last meeting, slides 50 and 51, there are timelines here, and I recognize these are not set in stone. However, the timelines state under scenario 1, the K through 8 redistricting, that work would begin in January 2024. So is that not the case? Was that an incorrect timeline? Was that just a speculative timeline?
It was I'm going to say a speculative but a good prediction of a timeline. But what we mean by that more specifically would be if you would go back, if we think about the slides or the process that we just described in terms of January, we would begin to, the next step in the process would be to secure engineering services to allow us to begin planning for whatever option the board gives direction. That doesn't mean, and I'm looking at, for example, slide 51 that we shared, that doesn't mean that if the board gives direction to move with option 1, that does not mean that in January of 2024 that we are starting renovations to Albertus. It means that we are beginning the work related to that particular project. And the work includes all of those steps that we went through tonight.
Okay,
I
well, that's
hope that
important
helps.
clarification.
Okay.
I think
Yes.
it would have been important to
Yes.
have that clarified last time, because it says project construction, so. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you for those questions. I think those were important clarifications prior to taking this vote. With no further questions, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Moving on to item B, is now going to be open discussion amongst the board to talk about which K through 8 option we would like to direct that effort to understand how that's going to work. So I'd like to open the floor for questions. Ms. Bowman?
Started off. I guess I felt that with redistricting, we're spending more money and we're actually not solving the problem, which is overcrowding in our schools. Whereas the realignment with redistricting, and I'm calling it that just to make sure everybody's clear that what it is. It's not that it's that much of a difference in price, but it actually does address the original problem of overcrowding. And so I think it's important to solve the problem. I know some people that we heard from questioned the demographic study. Given that I'm not a statistician, I'm not going to be say who's right or who's wrong, but I do think that anybody who wants to know if our schools are overcrowded should just go to LMMS during class change and see what they think, or the high school during class change, or tour any of our elementary schools that are out of space. Even if the population doesn't increase at all, we're extremely limited, especially with special education, that have class, what is it, 1 to 8, or 8 to 1, sorry, I said that backwards. So we have several schools where we cannot expand our number of classrooms, which means as more kids come in, all we're left to do is increase class sizes, and I don't like that option. So I am going to vote for the, restructuring model.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bowman. Mr. Jankowski.
I've got a bit of a different perspective. I believe option one with redistricting the middle schools, adding this proposed construction to Albertus and Jefferson, or Lincoln, actually, I believe it is, as well as redistricting some of the elementary, in my opinion, is the better option. I have concerns, and I appreciate the administration and your foresight into the impact of having a 5, 6, 7, 8 model, but I still have concerns from a extracurricular social aspect on what the 5, 6, 7, 8 model, what the impact would be. You know, I know now having kids in middle school and the issues with the number of students signing up for clubs, the number of kids signing up for sports. You've got the orchestra, you've got the chorus, you've got the plays, you've got the musicals. All the various opportunities for students, I think, are going to be more difficult with a 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to, and I understand, you know, there's discussion about intramural sports and green and yellow. I don't think that has the same effects and same results as the current 2 multiple middle school has. I think my concern is that students are going to be missing out on opportunities because of the number of students in the same grades. And I from my perspective, it's going to be, I think it's going to be detrimental to our students. And what I am in favor of is redistricting the middle schools so that there's a more clean split and more equal allocation of students to each of the schools, as well as, you know, redistricting the elementary schools with the construction, I think, for me, has the better result for our students.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jankowski. Mr. Champagne.
Yes. After having worked through this process for the last several years and hearing both sides, I support the movement to the 5, 6, 7, 8 model. I think it, you know, while Mr. Jankowski brought up a number of issues that I think are important, I think we are looking at this to make sure that we're doing right by students at all levels. I think it addresses a number of things in a very clean way. One, the K through 4 model alleviates the issue of overcapacity at our elementary schools without having to put any of our elementary schools through a construction build-out. It provides, I think, more focused attention on those students. I think the 5, 6, 7, 8 model will give students more opportunities. I think with the programmatic changes that the administration is looking at to ensure that you have a house within each of those schools that represents the 5 and the 6 levels. And with the supports that are there, I think it's critical to recognize that if you just build the facilities, that doesn't address the real issues that we face from an equity standpoint, from a programmatic standpoint. It is the supports that we need to put in place, the academic additions that we need to consider. I think the breaking down of the barriers between middle schools and having all students in a cohort throughout their period of time in 5, 6, 7, 8, and in through the high school will actually help bring more cohesiveness with the student population. And it is something that I think gives us a unique opportunity to, you know, set out on a path that can, you know, provide not only the academic needs for the students, but those extracurricular activities much greater than we have today. Well, I understand there's issues with, whether or not students can participate. I kind of view it the other way. I think we're going to give students more opportunity than less. So I will be voting in favor of the grade realignment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Champagne. Additional comment? Mr. Byrd?
Just have a comment. I guess I would be voting for the realignment and the addition of the schools. I guess the way I look at it, I look at us having a clean sheet of paper as we start out with the K through 4 and then the 5, 6, and consolidating the middle schools. I think as the district changes and the demographic changes, we're looking at developing a specific culture that gives everybody inclusive education. I think that's what the district is looking toward doing with some of the support systems that they're looking to put into these programs. I think with having these buildings, I think it's not going to be the building. I think it's what they put inside of it, and that's been very critical in their presentations in the last couple of weeks. So I'll be voting in favor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Byrd. More comments? Mr. Smith?
Sure. So this one is, this decision is, kind of goes without saying, this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest decision that we as a board have made in my time on the board. And this particular one, with the exception of maybe full-day kindergarten many, many years ago, probably hits home the closest to me in the effects that it's going to have on our middle-level students. We did receive several emails with some concerns, but to me they read more as wanting to learn more about what would happen if, or if we went this way, this fork or that fork, and how that would impact my family, my kids, my community. And the reason why this hits home so close to me, as many of you know, I had the privilege, or have had the privilege, of being in education for over 20 years at this point, 18 of which was spent at the elementary level, and I know that age group very, very well. More recently, I've had the pleasure of leading a 6th grade building with the added transition, which is one of the things that we're looking at doing here, and have gotten to know the middle school, the middle level learner very, very well over the past several years as well. And one of the things that I have learned in my time is that there's a very strong similarity between the 5th grade learner and the 6th grade learner, and then the 7th grade learner and the 8th grade learner. They match very well. And to go from a 6th grader to a 7th grader, there is a step up, and I hope that many of my East Penn colleagues who are at the middle level would agree with me on that. And so it makes sense to me to have that kind of, if we're looking at re-envisioning what the middle level looks like for our students, to have a 5-6 middle school with an elementary flavor, as I like to call it, and a 7-8 middle school with a more high school flavor, it allows for, in my mind, for some really unique learning opportunities for our students, but especially at the 5-6 level, because 7-8 is not going to look drastically different. It's going to be, they're not going to be any 6th graders there, but their learning experience is probably not going to be all that much different. But now in a 5th grade and a 6th grade building, a 5-6 building, we're looking at potentially offering those extracurriculars to a whole grade level of students that maybe they had a little club here or there with a teacher that was willing to stay a little bit after school and once a month, something like that. But now we're really looking at giving them the opportunity to really truly experience what middle school feels like at a more developmental level for them. And so I feel like we're going to be able to expand access to kids that didn't have it before. And then yeah, we have the green and the gold. We're going to be doing that as well. But I think there's a lot of variety there that we can now do, where we have the student population to, and maybe there's a need for a club that, only had 2 kids at one school and 3 kids at another. Well, now you have 5 that have a small community of learners centered around a common interest that we can make a club where we didn't have one before. And similarly, we all, every single one of us up here at this panel can think of a learner, maybe in our own families, maybe a neighbor, friend, but who has a specific set of learning needs that is unique to them, that only can be experienced in a very, very small setting right now. But by combining our schools in this fashion, we are potentially giving them an opportunity to say, hey, look, there are other kids like you that learn like you, that might approach a topic like you, and we can put them together into a way that really builds that collaborative spirit for all of our kids, and for many more of our kids than we currently do right now. So there's a lot of opportunity there that I think doesn't exist currently, that I'm really excited and hoping to see flourish and grow throughout the course of this project. I'm very, very sad that I won't be able to see my kids go through that kind of a setting, but I darn sure wish they had that opportunity, and I darn sure wish that I had the opportunity to work in that kind of a setting. So for those many reasons, I'm going to be voting in support of the realignment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Falagi.
Thank you. Echoing the majority of my colleagues here, I will also be voting for option 2, K through 8 realignment. I just want to get out there for public clarification that also does include redistricting, correct? Because I think there's some confusion there.
Yes, it does include redistricting in some buildings.
Right,
Yes.
just so the public
Yes.
understands that. Okay, for me, it was basically, my thought process was, Ms. Bowen brought up at the last meeting, what would be least disruptive to our students. I think that's important to me. It's a little bit easier, I think, to work on a middle school and keep those kids more focused than it is, at least for my 3rd grader at Jefferson, to be going through that. But that was one of my things. I also think it was very important what Dr. Campbell spoke of, getting our 5th grade students together sooner than later. So you would have all 5th grade together at one time, and then they would just go through their whole remainder of their school year together. So I think that's important as far as equity goes. So I will be voting for option 2 at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Falagi. Dr. Whitney.
Yeah, thank you. So you've done a lot of soul searching about these options, as I'm sure my colleagues all have as well. Echo Mr. Smith, who says this is a monumental decision. It certainly is that. Just to be upfront about it, I will be supporting option 2, the realignment. I've certainly tried to bring myself up to speed in the last 3 weeks as much as I could on the research and the pros and the cons that are out there for taking 6th grade populations and putting them in, or keeping them in an elementary school setting versus moving them up to a middle school setting. And of course, I know we're talking here about something a little bit in between that. But it seems as though, the research shows that keeping 6th graders with lower grades is actually more productive. They tend to perform better on testing, is my back of the napkin research, as best I could find it. So in that gives me some credence towards the 5, 6, 7, 8 center. I do also think it gives us an opportunity to do some really innovative things educationally. I love the idea that this will be a whole district starting from 5th grade on. I think that's tremendously important. And I think it can give us opportunities to, I mean, although I see Mr. Jankowski's point that, there are opportunities that 6th graders have now that they may not have in the 5, 6 center, I do think it gives us a chance to give different types of opportunities, as others have said. I do just want to reinforce, and I'll be a broken record, in that if we're going down this road and if we're going to create these new buildings, and essentially we're bringing the whole district together from fifth grade on, there has to be absolutely clear out front communication at every step with the entire community. If we're going to do this for the district, we have to do this with the district. No obfuscation, no referencing back 6 months, some document that was put in a board agenda that people then have to go find. Transparency, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. I want to see when that 5-6 building opens, I want to see the community be part of decorating it, be part of programming it. I want to see the same for the 7-8 building. I want to see these be real district opportunities. And decisions aren't being made behind closed doors or in small groups for many, many months before they're then put in front of the public. I want to make sure that I don't want to get all the emails I got over these last few weeks, and I think others did as well, that this feels like a tremendously rushed decision, which, that it was not, in the sense that this has been batted around for a very long time. But I just think the importance of clear communication can't be overstated, given that this is such a transition. I do think there's a lot of things to work out as well. I can see the family that, not my family, but I can see the family that has a third grader, a fifth grader, and a seventh grader and has to put them all on 3 different buses, getting a little panic attacks. And I can certainly see that there's going to be some logistical challenges to that. But that said, I think the potential benefits of this plan far outweigh the potential drawbacks. And so I'm happily in support of the realignment option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Whitney. Any further comment? Ms. Bowman?
I have just a couple follow-ups based on other comments, but if other board members want to speak first, that would be fine.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to get my...
I did just want to say a few things that I forgot to say. One is that while I feel really strongly that realignment is the best option, it's better than doing nothing, and it's better than redistricting, in my opinion. I am not sure I'm all on board with everything that was included in the realignment proposal. And I'm hoping that the price tag can be brought down in future meetings. So I'm only mentioning that to the number of people who wrote to us saying that I think you have at least one person on the board, if not more, who have the same concerns. Also, I wanted to mention just we need to be really careful about how we plan to transition kids, especially because that one has redistricting and realignment in it, so that we're not somehow transitioning kids every single year for several years because they go from their current school to a different school because of redistricting and then to yet another school because of the realignment. So I would hope that we would do everything possible to avoid those situations. And also, I would hope that we would avoid things like, for example, the family that wrote to us that can walk to Jefferson and was worried that they would have to put their kids on a bus to go to, I think it's West Coastville, I can't remember. I would hope that we would, at all possible, if kids can walk to a school, we would make sure that they can still walk to a school and we wouldn't put them on a bus to a school that's much further away. Our community schools, in my opinion, are among the best things we have at East Penn. It's really rare that you have walkable schools, 3 different schools in the same town, and I hope we can maintain that feeling. And then I just wanted to address one thing. I did really feel like realignment does allow more opportunity, and I understand that the opportunities will change. But one of the things that I loved about that proposal is it's probably one of the smallest details in it, but that you're going to take the activity bus from 2 days a week to 4 will finally allow kids with 2 working parents to do activities after school. It was trying to have my kid do theater when my husband and I were both working more than a half hour away from this area and trying to line up people those 2 days a week to get him home when there was no bus. He waited in front of the school for more than a half hour on some days. So I'm really glad that we're going to solve the lack of busing problems, because I think there's a whole group of kids who were not doing after-school activities if only because they didn't have transportation. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bowman. Further comment before I? Okay, so again, I think that this was a great discussion. I think my colleagues brought up some excellent points to think about. As Dr. Whitney said, some soul searching over the last few weeks to really try and think about the pros and cons of each of these options. So, some concerns that I had would be, what are the criteria that are going to be used for drawing new district lines? Certainly the neighborhood feel, I think, is an important consideration, particularly for those schools that are in Emmaus. An interesting point that a constituent brought up was, looking at, preserving socioeconomic diversity within the realignment or with the redistrict boundaries, I think is also something that's going to be important. And as Mr. Champagne highlighted in the prior vote, no decisions have been made at this point, so I think there's plenty of opportunity for us as a board administration and those people who have a stake in deciding these things to make those considerations. The impact of the transitions, I think, is something that can't be overlooked, although, we were given some information in the interim that did provide some reinforcement of the idea that this is not something that's going to be a huge issue for students as they navigate from school to school. I certainly do share cost concerns for this project. It is a significant ask for the community in order to make this investment in our public schools and stage it for the next several decades. So again, we are beginning the process. We will be beginning the process of getting more specific in terms of numbers and the details of the options. And it's my hope that we will, find ways to save, as Ms. Bowman alluded to, or be more efficient or effective in the types of operational and programmatic needs that we're looking for. Some other thoughts, if moving to a 5-6 and 7-8 learning model, again, another constituent was concerned of what would a 5-6 building look like in terms of its learning model. Is it going to be more elementary-ish, or is it going to be more middle school-ish? I think it is a point of transition, and so I think some additional study and work needs to go in terms of making sure that whatever gets set up is going to be is going to work the best for those cohorts of students. I certainly respect Mr. Jankowski's point that there are concerns with how 5-6 center or 7-8 center are going to work in terms of opportunities and extracurriculars and the social aspects and whatnot. But I think it's very good that these questions have come up now, because it creates plenty of opportunity for our administrators, teachers, parents, community input, whatnot, to try and figure out ways to respond to those concerns to make sure that students have the best possible experience that they have. So identifying it, I think, is important. And if we remember G.I. Joe in the 80s, knowing is half the battle, right? So if we know what questions we're asking, or what questions they ask, we have an opportunity to try and address those and again, make this the best possible scenario. So in looking at which option I favor, I think, I'm ultimately going to favor the realignment option. I certainly see that there's an urgency to address K through 8 needs in terms of spatial and programmatic needs. There's a lot of, there are some definable and strong reasons for bringing the cohorts together sooner. So it's overall a net positive. Yes, there are concerns about how these things are going to be implemented, but again, with enough time, hopefully we can soften those concerns. But there's some distinct advantages in looking at uniformity and equity of the programs and that are put forth. The better and more efficient use of resources as applied to the student bodies, extracurriculars. Again, I think Mr. Champagne's right. That there are opportunities to enhance these for students, in addition to getting facilities that every student at every level is going to get, will have the opportunity to partake in. I do think there are advantages to enhance cohesiveness and culture amongst the student groups. And if you think about it, instead of having again, focusing on the middle levels, if you can bring the entire fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade cohorts of teachers under one roof, I think that can enhance communication and provide, a more robust delivery of content. Making the elementary schools K through 4, does have some advantages, again, in terms of space, but also, potentially, creating, a different atmosphere with only 5 grades as opposed to 6 grades. And, I think maybe there's a lot of fourth graders out there that are looking forward to being the big kids in the school and kind of setting the tone. Some other, perhaps more minor things, if we look back, the survey did indicate that there was support for moving to the 5, 6, 7, 8 centers, so I don't think that's something that can be ignored entirely. And I did ask the question at the last meeting in terms of how we would implement these large-scale capital projects, and there are some advantages to limiting the project scope to having construction only be occurring in 2 locations as opposed to 4 in terms of implementing the K-8 model. So, like most difficult decisions, you have to weigh the pros and cons, and I do see that there's in general a net positive and an upside to go along with moving to a realignment as opposed to just an outright redistricting. Well, thank you for allowing me some time. Are there any further comments or questions? Okay, well, Dr. Campbell, I think there's general I wouldn't say full consensus, but there's a general sense that realignment is the option that we'd like to go with. And with that, item C, there are 2 motions that are written there. The motion that we would be looking for, it would be the second one, resolved that the Board of School Directors of East Bend School District approve option 2, K-8 realignment, as set forth in the feasibility study presented on October 23rd, 2023, and authorize the administration to proceed accordingly. Given that, I'd like to someone to accept a motion or make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Ms. Bowman?
This is not really discussion. I just keep forgetting to ask this. I every once in a while when we, and this is probably the first time I've ever been on the board that we've had such extensive presentations, but I do notice people in the audience trying to take pictures, which is fine. I'm not complaining about anybody doing that. As much as I feel like when we used to have paper agendas, all of these presentations were in the agenda, and now that we've switched to board docs, we often don't have the presentations in the agenda for the audience. And I know they are up on the, whatever, they're being projected, but I just feel like in the future, it'd be great if they could be included in the meeting board docs so everybody has access to it. That's all.
Yes, thank you. We'll make sure they are.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments related to the motion? Mr. Byrd?
Just one more comment. I know one of my colleagues talked about where we are. We're at a fork in the road, just at a bend in the road, and I think we're going to be moving forward, and the road's going to be straight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with no other questions, Ms. Zalian, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 nay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Looks like we got some work to do, Dr. Campbell. Okay, moving on, next item on the agenda is personnel items. Before I make a motion, I'd like to highlight that there is one minor correction under resignations. The correct name of the assistant coach for boys lacrosse is Raymond Guffey, not Robert. May I have a motion to accept the personnel agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mr. Falegi?
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Whitney?
Aye.
Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Dr. Levinson?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Before we move on, I believe Dr. Campbell has some words.
I do. With the motion that the board just approved, we did accept the retirements of several East Penn employees, effective, one for upcoming in December, the other two for the end of the school year. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize them, specifically Janice Bishop, who's currently an elementary counselor at McCungie Elementary. Janice has been with us for 21 years in East Penn, a total of 31 years in education. And I can say that Janice's retirement will have a tremendous impact on our elementary program, our counseling program. I had the privilege when I worked as an elementary principal at Lincoln. Janice was the guidance counselor at Lincoln. And so I have seen her firsthand in terms of the amazing work that she does with our students. And it's just been a real pleasure to continue to be a part of her journey. In addition, Linda O'Connor, who's a fifth grade teacher at McCungie. She will be retiring at the end of the year as well. Again, two rock stars at McCungie Elementary who will be leaving us. Linda has 20 years of service in East Penn, a total of 32 years in education. I believe most of Mrs. O'Connor's time at McCungie has been in fifth grade. And again, I remember going back to when I started my career, Linda was also a fifth grade teacher, and so she and I certainly were colleagues at that time. And finally, Tim Patterson, who is currently a member of our maintenance team at Emmaus High School. He has 18 years of service in East Penn, and so we certainly wish him well in his retirement, which is coming up very quickly in December. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Campbell, and congratulations to those veterans. Okay, moving on, business operations. If there are no objections, I'd like to take items A through E together. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Ms. Bowman?
Just really impressed with the Education Foundation doing another big donation this time to Project Lead the Way, but it's great to have that and helping to support our STEM programming.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any other comments? I would like to echo Ms. Bowman's comment. Again, being the board rep on the foundation board, it's a fabulous organization that does exist to benefit our students, and we certainly welcome and appreciate the generous donation to help enhance what we do in the Project Lead the Way program. Okay, with no further comments or questions, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mr. Jankowski.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Dr. Whitney.
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen.
Aye.
Ms. Bowman.
Aye.
Mr. Byrd.
Aye.
Mr. Champagne.
Aye.
Mr. Falegi.
Aye.
Dr. Levin.
Aye.
9.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Item 8, curriculum, educational conferences. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Dr. Whitney.
Aye.
Mrs. Bowen.
Aye.
Ms. Bowman.
Aye.
Mr. Byrd.
Aye.
Mr. Champagne.
Aye.
Mr. Falegi.
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski.
Aye.
Dr. Levinson.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Item 9, other items. There's a motion to approve the additional EHS Athletic Facebook and Instagram social media accounts to our district social media account log. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions from the board? Mr. Champagne?
Yeah, it's just a nit. It's no longer called Twitter.
We're on it, thank you.
So tech savvy.
Yeah, we're going to miss that, Paul. Okay, if there are no other questions, Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Dr. Whitney.
Aye.
Bowen.
Aye.
Ms. Bowman.
Aye.
Mr. Byrd.
Aye.
Mr. Champagne.
Aye.
Falegi.
Aye.
Mr. Jankowski.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Dr. Levinson.
Aye.
Ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. On to other educational entities. I believe we have a report from Dr. Whitney on the CLIU.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Levinson. So the CLIU Board of Directors met on October 23rd, 2023. I was unfortunately not in attendance at the meeting, but I do have a summary of it and a couple of things to highlight that are relevant to our district. There was a presentation from a supervisor of special programs and services on the CLIU Life Skills Program. That Life Skills Program is for students in grades K through 12 up to age 22 who demonstrate difficulty in acquiring academic and functional daily living skills due to their cognitive and/or physical disabilities. There are 5 sites throughout the CLIU's footprint that host life skills classrooms, and 3 of them are in East Penn. Albertus Elementary, Lower Macungie Middle School, and Emmaus High School are 3 of the 5 sites that host life skills classes. And there was a video, which I would love to share somehow. I'll send it along, and hopefully we can share it somewhere with the district. There was a video shown of the Emmaus High School Football Buddies program, which is something I was not familiar with, but I'm now extremely heartwarmed by. These are members of the Emmaus High School football team who, on Fridays during the football season, go to these life skills classrooms, spend time with these young people, play games with them, draw, and even break down football film, make really important connections with those students. And so the video is really inspiring, makes me very proud of our EHS students on the football team who participate in this program. So again, I would love to share it somehow. I will send it along to Janine perhaps, and we can post it somewhere where everybody can see it. The other presentation that the board received was from Eric Leck. He's the Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Ed Tech in CLIU. Just an overview of the department, which supports all the areas of teaching and learning that the CLIU supports. They also host PDE professional certifications. And in 2022, 2023, the department had 66 free workshops available to anyone in the CLIU schools, 100 plus individual district engagements, over 1,500 teacher touch points. They hosted 22 student events, served 712 students in camps and competitions, and provided 399 students with student driver education. So wide footprint there. Other business, quickly, we approved the creation of a full-time Assistant Director of Special Programs and Services. There will be 2 such positions added to the CLIU staff, and that's part of a move to, among other things, shore up succession plans for perhaps imminent retirement of the current Director of Special Programs and Services, and to provide increased managerial level support. Special Programs and Services is the largest entity within the CLIU, and it's really the crux of what they do. And so this is a fast-growing area and needs a lot of extra staff support. So we've approved the first of those 2 positions. We also approved the sale of 2 vans in the CLIU transportation fleet to the Northwestern Lehigh School District. Those are being sold at Blue Book rate. And then finally, the financial report from the Carbon Lehigh Special Needs Children's Foundation for fiscal year 23. The foundation did run a small deficit in fiscal 23, but their balance sheet is still healthy. I did see that in the report, donations to the Special Needs Children's Foundation in fiscal 23 were just over $1,600 outside of their specific fundraising events. So just a reminder to the community that in addition to our wonderful EPSD Education Foundation, as you start to consider end-of-year donations, if you have the means to do so, please consider donating to the Carbon Lehigh Special Needs Children's Foundation as well for all the great work that they do. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Whitney. Are there any questions? Okay, our next report is from the LCTI JOC. Mr. Paul Champagne, giving your final report.
My last one, okay. Yes, the Joint Operating Committee of LCTI met on Wednesday, October 25th. Highlights from the meeting, Dr. Greenewalt went through and talked about the progress they're making on their system of continuous improvements, highlighting, actions and school goals in the area of stakeholder management, staff and student experience, safety and well-being, operational excellence, and organizational culture and achievement. She also talked about some meetings and conferences that they attended in support of CTE. The first being the Children First Conference down in Philadelphia, sponsored by WHYY. They're an advocate for CTE. It's something that Representative Pete Schweier also attended, and they're really working hard to bring CTE funding advancement at the state level. There was a meeting of the Lehigh Valley Manufacturing Forum that we attended, which highlighted adult education as well. And then Skills USA Awards and annual meeting was also representatives from LCTI were at that as well. In addition, we talked about the student tours for the 8th and 9th graders that were held between October 23rd and November 3rd. Roughly 3,500 students in Lehigh County participated in those tours. The open house that was held on November 2nd, I guess was a smashing success. I was unable to attend, but from all indications, it went very well. The counselor and special education information sessions between LCTI and the sending schools, that's been postponed from November 16th to December 12th. But that is an important thing that is being held every year with the sending districts. And Dr. Van Norman highlighted the occupational advisory committees. They had over 330 business and industry partners attend a meeting. Those committees are very influential in how the programs at LCTI are evaluated and also evolve over time. In addition, we were awarded a grant in the amount of $181,464 from the Community-Oriented Policing Services Fund. It's a federal grant. That share is being matched by LCTI of $60,488, so roughly $241,000 will be used for safety and security issues. LCTI was one of only 4 schools in the state of Pennsylvania that were awarded this grant. In addition, we submitted to PDE a supplemental equipment grant in the amount of $1,168,000. This is a very large amount, much larger than we've ever submitted, but it is something that we have been successful in gaining some funding for in the past. Its allocation is based on a state formula. We should know shortly how much of that. But the grant itself that we submitted encompasses over 75 pieces of equipment and roughly 13 programs, and hopefully we'll see a fairly good shake from that. In addition, we voted on and passed the allocation of board seats for the Joint Operating Committee for the 2024 calendar year. Again, East Penn is awarded 4 of those seats on the 21-member committee. Parkland has 6. Allentown has 3. Southern Lehigh and Whitehall Copley each have 2. Salisbury, Northwestern Lehigh, Northern Lehigh, and Catasauqua each have 1. So that was something that we do every year. We also approved the contract with the PPL Center for the Senior Recognition Night, which will be held in May of 2024. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Champagne. Mr. Smith.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Champagne just mentioned that, I don't know if any of you picked up on that, we just approved the allocation of seats for East Penn on the LCTI JOC. There are 4 of them, and by my count, we are losing half of them of the current board members. So this is a shameless little plug. If you'd like to join Dr. Levinson and I, we have 2 open seats, and I'm not looking at anybody in specific, but if you're interested, we'd love to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. You stole my statement. Mr. Jankowski.
I'd just like to thank Mr. Champagne for your comprehensive and informative reports for the past 4+ years I've been here. And more importantly, I'd like to thank you for your passion for LCTI. You will definitely be missed on this board. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I would argue to echo Mr. Smith's point. It's a wonderful organization. If you haven't had a chance to go up there and see it and be part of the Joint Operating Committee, think hard about it because it is really something special up there.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments? Okay. Well, before we move on to announcements, we've seen this coming for many months now. We do have 3 outgoing board members, Mr. Champagne, Ms. Bowen, and Mr. Byrd. 3 members who have made significant contributions to the function of this board, and dare I say, friends true friends that we've made through this service together. Before I say more, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Campbell, who I think has some words to say.
I do, and I appreciate Dr. Levinson's intro in terms of it's really kind of a bittersweet, difficult time to bid farewell to three great individuals, community members and board members. And so, you know, I at times have this really unique and interesting role in that as an employee of the district, and a 10th member of this board, I have the pleasure of working with each of the 9 members of the board. And as everyone knows, like, my background is an educator, and so I still consider myself a teacher. That's my passion. And I have the interactions with the board through that lens. And I'm a parent, I'm a mom of children in our school district. And so I'm always really proud of the work of the board and have a tremendous amount of respect for the 9 members who make those decisions for our kids, because they're really critical and important decisions that our team makes on a regular basis. So as we have 3 board members who are leaving us, each has really left a great mark on our school district and our community. And I think we all, regardless of what our path might be in life, we always wish to leave something better than when we first joined it, or better than how we found it. And I think certainly Ms. Bowen, Mr. Champagne, Mr. Byrd can say that given their varying time on the board, they certainly left a positive mark and left education in a really great place, and better probably than when you stepped on. Ms. Bowen has been with us for only 2 years, but yet it's hard to imagine our team without her somewhat quiet yet very strong presence on the board. Something that I think we've all learned about her is that she's a tremendous advocate for all students, and what I admire most is she is the voice and she's the advocate for maybe a group that needs to be represented the most, and that would be some of our most vulnerable populations, some of our special education students. And so I really appreciate the way in which she has helped us to introspect some of our own procedures and do better as a result of things that she brought to our attention. So thank you, Jen. Mr. Byrd has been with us for 5.5 years, and he is someone who has always been very willing to jump right in any way, shape, or form. He's been a part of negotiations committee. I probably don't want to take you back there for a moment, but he was a part of our health and safety committee throughout COVID. He's been a part of our special education committee work, a member of the LCTI Joint Operating Committee. And something that really stands out to me about Mr. Byrd is just his continued passion for advocacy. And so, certainly he's been very involved with PSBA and their work around advocacy. And he has promised us that while he won't be active on the board anymore, he's going to remain active in terms of continuing to advocate for kids and the great things that are happening here in East Penn. So we will certainly miss Mr. Byrd as well. And finally, Paul Champagne he's been a member of the East Penn School Board for 8 years. He's been vice president for 4 years as part of our board. This has been admired by some already in terms of Paul's very evident passion for career and technical education, and has been, I really see a change in terms of the role and the perception of our school community with regard to career and technical education. And I think Paul's a big reason that has been elevated to such an important an important role. As a member of the LCTI Joint Operating Committee, he's also had various leadership roles on their board as treasurer as well as vice chair. He served on multiple negotiation committees as part of East Penn. Most recently, he's been a part of our facility inquiry team meetings, and Paul's very strong business background. I feel as if any process that we've gone through, and a lot of what we do has a strong business financial background. His very thoughtful and analytical questions have always brought us to a place better than where we started. So as our 3 board members leave us, I just again want to, as a leader, as an educator, as a member of the East Penn community, express on behalf of the administration our very sincere gratitude for the fact that, twice a month plus much more work that you do outside of those meetings. You come here well prepared. We know that you've thought deeply about the topics that we're going to discuss. You contribute in meaningful ways so that we come to, for example, tonight, having to make really difficult and really critical decisions. And you're always open to learning more, to listening. I think that's very evident from all of you as well, listening to each other, listening to community members, listening to members of our faculty, and really very thoughtful and methodical in your decision-making, and we will certainly miss you all. And I will also take the moment to, while we're very sad to see 3 of our board members leave, our team also certainly welcomes and looks forward to welcoming new board members at a future meeting. And then finally, I have one final recognition for Paul Champagne specifically. PSBA has a certificate of appreciation for board members who have served on school boards for a certain number of years. And so his 8 years of dedicated service certainly is one that he has made the PSBA honor roll. And so that is a tremendous accomplishment. So let's give Paul as well as Alan and Jen a round of applause.
That's always my goal.
Didn't make the high one?
No.
Great.
All right, well, Dr. Campbell, that was a wonderful tribute to 3 very special people. But I would now like to open the floor to our 3 departing members, if they so choose, to say some, closing words or share some closing thoughts to reflect on their service. And I'm going to go alphabetically by last name. So, Ms. Bowen.
Thanks. I wish all the remaining board members all the best. This has been a unique and mostly wonderful experience for me. I welcome the new board members who will be joining next month, and I wish them all the best as well. And I will happily return to my regularly scheduled Monday night bedtime.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bowen. Mr. Byrd.
Yes, it's been outstanding. I guess I retired from one job and took a new job, East Penn School District. I've enjoyed my time here. It's been a great job. Gonna finally really retire after tonight, but I'm not gonna leave the district. I'm still gonna support education and advocate for education. I still have that passion and love for what the guys are doing at East Penn. So I will be here. I'm not going anywhere. I just won't be sitting in a seat after the night, but I'll be right here, right with you, rolling up my sleeves, doing anything you need me to do, because that's what I like to do. It's a passion for me. We have a great district. We have some challenges, but we still find a way to get it done. And everybody in the district works hard, and it's for our community. We support our community, and we'll continue to do that. And I'll continue to do anything I can do as far as education. And thanks for all the support I'm getting from the district and in my community. And it's been a pleasure to serve and an honor to be a part of the East Penn School District. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Byrd. Mr. Champagne.
Yes, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve not only on this board, but with the other board members. I really appreciate their thoughtfulness, their passion for education, their passion just for the community. I also like to thank Dr. Campbell. She has been a great leader, and I've seen her grow tremendously in the 8 years that I've been here. When she was first as an assistant principal and then as superintendent. I think the district has made a wise choice in bringing her on as the superintendent, and I'm very happy to see that she's going to be with us for another 5 years. I'd also like to thank all the other teachers, staff members that I've had a chance to work with. I think we have some of the best, in the area, if not in the state, maybe in the country. They have dedication to making it better for our students. They put their whole heart and soul into it. Our teachers have weathered many, many storms since I've been on the board, and I can't thank them enough for their dedication and passion to what they have accomplished and hopefully can accomplish in the future. I'd like to see, obviously, things get better in areas that we've identified, but I know we can make the difference with the people that are in this district. They have what it takes to, bring out the best in not only their colleagues, but the students. And finally, it's been, a kind of an interesting ride, all the challenges that we have faced over the last 8 years. But like Dr. Campbell said, I think we came out on the better end of it, and we have a bright future. And I will still, as Mr. Byrd said, be around. I'm not leaving, but won't be sitting in this chair any longer. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity and the privilege to serve.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Champagne. I would like to allow, if there are board members who would like to share their thoughts. Ms. Bowman?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to serve with all three of you. One of the things that I appreciate the most is that you've all brought different perspectives to the board that not only have I learned from, but it really helped me to see how diversity of thought improves really any organization. The three of you brought differing skills and experiences to a variety of board discussions, sometimes even changed my mind on my votes. So, I'm definitely better off because I was able to serve on the board with you. And I joked about you coming to public comment or sending us emails, but I really would appreciate them. Because you served on the board, you know more about some of what goes into some of the decisions that we have to make than most people. And especially with your life experiences, those will be missed, and I would love to hear from you as big votes come around the corner.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Mr. Jankowski?
I echo what Ms. Bowman said. It's been an absolute honor serving with you three. Every board meeting is an educational experience for me, and I thank you all for that. I've come to appreciate areas and topics that I may not have had as much awareness or appreciation for that now I do. You've made me look at issues from different perspectives and appreciate the different perspectives. So I do want to thank you so much for the honor to serve with you three, and I do hope you will still be around and just honor your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
All right, I'll keep it short and sweet because this part of the meeting is not about me. It's about our three friends and colleagues who are leaving. Just very quickly, Paul, thank you for showing me when I arrived 6 years ago what it meant to be a board member in the East Bend School District. Learning about how to look at a budget differently and look at numbers differently was incredibly educational for me. And thank you for sharing your passion for CTE with all of us. Alan, thank you for sharing your wealth of experience, both personally, growing up, and some of the experiences that you faced in regard to public education, as well as your private experience and your professional experience with in the private sector. Your lived experience is something that all of us have a lot to learn from. So thank you so much for that. And finally, to my friend Jen Bowen, thank you. We heard tonight that, as we're all reminded, that you are one of the quieter members of our board, but you need to know that the echoes of the voice that you gave to special education families will ring in our ears for a very, very long time. So thank you.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Flaggy.
To Mr. Byrd, Mr. Champagne, Ms. Bowen, it's absolutely been an honor serving on the board. I learned a lot from each of you individually. Just like to thank you for that. Coming on this board is a really new experience for me, and sitting next to Jen was somewhat helpful, being fairly new as well. So just thank you and best of luck, and I appreciate everything you've done for East Penn, and that you're going to still be around. So to Ms. Bowen's point, please come speak to us. Be lovely. So best of luck.
All right, thank you, Mr. Flaggy. Dr. Whitney.
Yeah, just a quick thank you. I can't say it better than my colleagues have said it, but I mean, Jen, you and I joined this board around the same time. I would say we've learned together. You probably learned better than I have, but here we are, and I wish you weren't stepping down. I think you have so much to contribute, and Mr. Smith said it best. Your voice has been incredibly educative to me. And Paul and Alan, I can't thank you both enough, because you demonstrate what it means to be of service to a community. You demonstrate what it means to be insightful and thoughtful, and to have an incredibly high standard for what you do, and to hold others to that standard. And I can never articulate how much I've learned in this role from the two of you. So thank you both for your service. Thank you all three for your service.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Whitney. Okay, well, I think there's been some wonderful things said. I agree with everything that's been said in tribute for the three of you. I'll just simply say that having the three of you here has made me a better board member, and I've learned something special from each of you. And as I said, introducing this segment, three friends have been gained through this experience as well. So, wish you the best, and I do hope to see you around, as they say. Okay. Lastly, let's move on to announcements. There was an executive session held tonight, two topics on personnel and safety and security. The district will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday starting Thursday, November 23rd through Monday, November 27th. Our next board meeting will be an organization meeting, Monday, December 4th at 7:30 in this room, followed by, on December 11th, a regular board meeting on December 11th at 7:30 p.m. With that, I'd now like to take a motion to adjourn.
So.
Second.
Very good, very good. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, good evening and have a happy Thanksgiving.
One way to end it, right?
I want to stop first.
Thank you, Mark.
First conference.
Happy holidays, Rob.
Good time sitting next to you. I hope you do well in the next